Okay, guys, so today we're going to be reading a story. It is called From Tree to Paper. We are reading this story so that we can understand how to find key details and to talk about sequence. You're going to be doing this yourself with cows and milk. You're going to be thinking about the process going from the grass to the milk that gets in your refrigerator. But I wanted to give us an example because this is requiring a lot of steps. We have to think about the sequence of events. We had to think about nonfiction. We had to think about key details. So let's give this a shot. We're reading Tree to Paper from Rachel Grack. Okay, that's her name. So here we go. Paper beginnings. Do you know that paper is made from trees? Forest plantations are home to fast-growing trees. The trees are processed into the paper that we use every day. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to think about this page. Okay. So it told me on this page that paper comes from trees, and they get those trees out of forest plantations. So I will write that down over here. I'll write down the important information in my own words. I will make sure that I include the key details of that it's made from trees and that it's from a forest plantation. I did not write trees are green. I did not write I use paper sometimes. Those are things that are true, but they are not what we're looking for. We're thinking about the sequence of events from paper to trees, and we're thinking about the important key details. Let's go on to the next page. After a few years of growth, the trees are ready to harvest. Loggers cut them down and remove the branches. Trucks are loaded with logs. They head to the paper mills. So on this page it told me the trees grow for a little while and then loggers cut them down and they take them to the paper mill. So I'll write that down. As my next step, the trees are cut down by loggers and go to mills. I'm thinking about the information on the page. I'm rewriting it in my own words. That skill is called summarizing, and we've worked on that skill a little bit before, but we're using it now to help us with sequence of events and key details. All right, at the mill, the logs go through a spinning drum. This removes the bark. The logs then get chopped up in the chipper. So this page is telling me about the process that happens to trees when they get to the mill. So at the mill, they take the bark off and they go through the chipper. So I'll write that down, including my key details about taking the bark off and going through the chipper. All right. At the mill, the bark is cut off and the tree goes through the chipper. I'm doing pretty good. I would give myself an A right now if I was grading myself. Wood chips are cooked with chemicals to break down lignin. The chips are turned into a brown, watery pulp. The pulp is cleaned and whitened. All right, so look, they got all these wood chips and then they break those down into pulp. So I read that page, I thought about what it told me, and now I'm going to write it down in my own words, remembering to use the key details. The chips are cooked with chemicals and then made into pulp. Oh, there's that word pulp. There's that word chemicals. Good job, I'm doing great. Moving on. The pulp is sprayed onto a moving screen. As the water drains out, fibers in the pulp join together. They form a long, solid sheet. The wet paper goes through a paper machine. Rollers flatten it and press out the water. Then the heated rollers finish drying the paper. So a lot happened there. So they make it into pulp. Then the wet paper is going to go through a lot of machines to be flattened out and smoothed. So I took the information about it being a pulp and then going through machines, and I wrote that down, remembering my key details about being flattened, about being smooth, about going through machines, and about it starting as wet paper. Moving on. One last set of heavy rollers smooths the paper. The long sheet winds into a huge reel, and this gets cut into smaller rolls. Oops, I went backwards. Machines cut the rolls of paper into sheets. They get stacked, wrapped, and shipped. So for my last step, it says the paper gets cut and is ready to leave the factory. So when we're talking about key details and when we're talking about sequence of events, there's some important things to remember. One, please make sure that you're going in order. Try to read the story and write as you go. That will help you remember important details. Do you think that I could have read this whole story and then remembered about the key detail of the forest plantations? Maybe not. So it's important to take notes as we read, to think about the key details, and to think about the order that things are happening. Then in our book, she has a little page where we can check ourselves, which is so nice. So it says harvested into mills. Okay, I've got that. It's talking about wood chips. I have the stuff about wood chips. You can kind of check yourself and go back through the text. A great thing to do is to look at the pictures and see if the pictures could go with what you've written. That's a great way to check ourselves about key details and about sequence. I will see you next time when we talk about key details and sequence, and have a good day.